What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a oddity, and it's going to be an update slash recap video for you here in the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise. I'm going to give you guys the information on the channels for the other guys in the league that stream their games. Now, their content is going to be sparse, so you're not going to be able to see all of their games or anything like that, but you should be able to see some of the games from their franchises and hopefully probably some of the good playoff games and things like that. So you'll get to see some of the action from their points of view, and I'm going to encourage them to do like recaps and updates and stuff for their teams as well. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go through that information now, and then we're going to recap what's going on with the team, what's going on around the league, and all that various different stuff. So first things first, Jamar15, who is the Titans, he streams his games. I'm going to actually click on the link. And I'll try to provide some links down in the description. He streams his games under the username John Marcius, John space Marcius. So I'll leave a link to one of his videos in the description. Obviously, I stream my games under Jacob Reid. The Chargers here, he streams his games as well, and he streams his. He's actually Coach Forbes of the RFL. He streams his on Twitch. The first one was on YouTube, I should say. He streams his on Twitch under Deflaming Gaming. So capital D, lowercase a, Flaming, which is Flaming, capital Gaming. So he has some of his games up there whenever he does broadcast his gameplay. And then we also have the 49ers, who streams some of his gameplay. So you'll be able to find his listed under Blake Swindle. So capital B, L-A-K-E, space, capital S-W-I-N-D-E-L-L. And then we also have Diamond King 5923, who is the Vikings. So make sure you guys go check out his content as well. We have the Browns, who stream their games as well. So I got to find a link for his. I probably have to find it on my YouTube because I'm subscribed to him. Let's see here. Apologize for the delay. I should have had this written out. So he is listed under the Mountain 76, so just the space Mountain, no space between Mountain and 76. So the Mountain 76, he streams some of his gameplay as well, so you guys will be able to find that. And then I also have the 49ers, who streams various different gameplays. He's in a lot of different franchises. He streams his gameplay under Mitchy Boy Gaming, so MITCHYBOY space gaming, and you'll be able to see a lot of gameplay from various different franchises under him. So just wanted to pass that information along to you guys. If I become aware of anybody else in here that wants to stream their gameplay as well, you guys will be able to see that. Thank you for sticking with me while I recap that information for you. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into my information on the team so far. So up at the top, you guys can obviously see that we have moved on. Actually, you can't see at the top. Right here, you can see that we've moved on to 13-1. So we're going to take a look at playoff standings and everything like that. The way that our division is shaking out right now is that we're sitting at 13-1. The Browns gave us a pretty good run this season, but the other user was not able to catch up quite as far, and he did beat us one game, so he's at 9-5. The Baltimore Ravens are sitting at 6-7, and the Bengals at 5-8. So neither of those teams are terribly bad, but that's how things are shaking out in terms of our division. In terms of the overall standings, the NFC is a pretty tight race, but the AFC is not quite as tight. So we have the top two teams here being the Steelers and the Titans being another user. And then we have the Chiefs sitting at 9-5, the Patriots at 9-4, Browns at 9-5, and then we have a couple of 8-6 teams with the Colts. The Bills are 8-5, I suppose, and then the Chargers are 8-6. So we have a couple of different things that could happen here, a couple of different scenarios, but the top end of the AFC is pretty well secured. Whereas with the NFC, we've got the Falcons at 11-2, and then pretty much everybody else beyond that is really in contention. I mean, we have the Vikings at 9-4. The Cowboys at 9-5, the Seahawks at 9-4. So that's an interesting one. The Vikings and the Seahawks are tied right now. The Packers sitting at 8-6, and then we have a bunch of 7-6 teams with the Saints, the Giants, the 49ers all contending for spots, and potentially, I guess, the Buccaneers and the Lions also contending for spots if some crazy things happen there. So that's very important to note that we have some decent playoff races going on at this point. We'll be advancing to Week 16 here at around 10 o'clock, and then I may try to get you guys that Baltimore game. We'll see what happens with that. To finish out the season, we have that Baltimore game, which is the CPU, and then we have a user, which is the Chargers in Week 17. With that being said, that's kind of a recap on how things are going as a league. Schedule-wise, we'll take a look at what's gone on week by week for us. So we started off Week 1, beating Baltimore 45-20. I apologize if these scores are a little bit high because we've scored a lot of points this season. We're honestly probably going to be looking to make these sliders a little bit more difficult as we move forward. 21-16 win over Vegas in Week 2. 56-33 the first time we played the Browns. I believe I broadcast that. We played the Lions and beat them 35-21. We went on to beat the Bengals 51-14. We then played the Browns for the second time, and they gave us a crazy run for our money, and that was 33-28 in a loss. And I'm sorry that I didn't stream that game because that one was a really good one. We beat the Broncos 43-20, the Vikings 52-35, the Packers 49-20. The Colts 55-35. The Dolphins gave us a decent matchup, 38-24. The Bengals 52-28. The Bears 46-30. And then last week, you guys saw one of our best games this season, only eking out the Chiefs by 3 points in a 21-18 victory. So with that being said, that's where we're sitting. We're sitting with a pretty good record going into playoffs. We've pretty much locked up where we're going to be. We could potentially lose the 1 seed, but I think that we're going to at least win 1 out of the last 2 games, and that should lock us up for the 1 seed. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of things that are going on here with the team. We do have quite a few players that are up for negotiation. We were able to re-sign a few of them that were incredibly important to the team. So I'm actually going to show you guys the re-signings first, and then we'll go into the players that still need to be signed. So looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers here and our re-signings, we brought back Chukwuma Okorafor for a 5-year, $66 million contract because he's been absolutely fantastic for us. I saw no reason to try to move on from him. He's been an anchor on our offensive line, and I really wanted to bring him back. We also brought back Steven Nelson. He's just played too good to move on from him, so we brought him back to a 3-year, $36.8 million deal. We also signed David DeCastro to a 3-year, $41.3 million deal, and we signed TJ Watt to a 6-year, $147 million deal. Some very important players here. As you guys can see, we had a lot of big name players available to be re-signed this year for us, and so that's kind of limited us money-wise, especially with Ben getting up there in age and his contract still being pretty big. So we do still have some other players that need to be re-signed, but we're waiting to see how things shake out when we hit the off-season, whether Ben retires or not, and frees up money to re-sign these players. But J.J. Watt is looking to be a free agency. I don't really know that we would have the money in any situation to be able to bring him back. What I will say is that if Ben retires, that frees up $35 million in space. So at that point, it would potentially be, an option to maybe bring him back, but with how many injuries he's had, he really hasn't had an impact for us this season. We're probably not looking to bring JJ back, but we will make that judgment call when the offseason comes along. And this offseason should be a little bit more entertaining, so I'm going to try to bring a little bit more content to you guys in the offseason. Marquise Pouncey, I would love to bring back. But there's been some discussion. We have to kind of wait and see what happens with him, because the theory is that Marquise Pouncey will retire at the same time as Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe won't happen in the game, but in real life, that is kind of the thing that is supposed to happen. So we may make that happen ourselves if Ben Roethlisberger retires. I would feel bad letting him go to another team. So realistically, out of anybody on this list, Marquise Pouncey is top priority if we can find the money to bring him back. But as you guys will see, I don't really have the money to be able to negotiate a contract with some of these guys. So, $7.5 mil is about all I have in terms of 2 years. I have like 4 mil in cap space here. So that limits me. Eric Ebron is probably going to walk, I would say, out of anybody. He's maybe one of the lower priorities. He's a fantastic player for us. I'd love to have him back, but we just don't have the money for that. And then we have some lower guys on the totem pole, some backup offensive linemen that probably aren't going to come back. And then 2 guys that I would love to bring back to the team that have been fantastic rotational players for us and have made quite a few plays on their own are Sutton Smith and Ryan Lewis. Ryan Lewis being a Pittsburgh kid himself. I would love to bring these guys back, but I just simply cannot afford to pay backups this type of money. I mean, I know that they're not asking for that much money, relatively speaking, but with how many players we have up for negotiation and things like that, I'm just going to simply have to fill out these roles with some draft picks. So we will be losing some important backup players here. Might have a chance to re-sign them in free agency or re-sign them in the offseason if I can free up the money to do so, but it's going to take a lot of work to get our financial situation to a point where we would be able to bring any of these guys back. So that's really important to note. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the roster as a whole and just get an idea of what's going on here. Currently speaking, the offensive line is a little bit injured. Obviously, Pouncey has gone down with an injury, and he's not showing here at center. DeCastro's been in and out with various injuries. This right tackle that we drafted last year has gone down a few times with injuries, but the strong side of our line has been the left side with Okorafor and Patterson playing pretty much every game and doing very, very well. We're seeing really nice development out of this left guard Patterson, 21-year-old rookie out of Notre Dame. He's playing really well, and that's fantastic for us, and we've been getting decent play out of Carroll here at center. But with that being said, I think that we are going to be looking to continue to bolster our offensive line, especially if Pouncey leaves in free agency and things like that. That's a main concern for us. Tight end wise, we're going to see Ebron probably walk in the offseason. Gentry has proved himself to be a very good player for us, but we brought in another player that could potentially help out in Albert O. Coming over from the Broncos, we didn't have to give up a ton to get him, but a player that can be the same type of receiving threat that we have in Gentry and Ebron. Since I like to run 2 tight ends, I think that will at least help us kind of stave off just the lack of talent at the tight end position. We've struggled to find tight ends in the draft or anything like that. We will be looking for a top tight end, but I don't think we're going to have access to one. But that is a top priority for us, is replacing Ebron if he does indeed walk in free agency. In terms of our wide receivers, there's not really much surprise here. Juju's doing fantastic. Deontay is at an 85 overall. Claypool's an 82. And then we obviously have Rondell Moore doing decent at a 75. With all that being said, I have openly shopped Deontay Johnson, and I probably will continue to openly shop Deontay Johnson. I think the combination of Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, and Rondell Moore is the future for me, from my perspective. So Deontay Johnson could probably fetch us a decent price, being that he's a 25-year-old, 85 overall superstar wide receiver. He could probably plug and play on most teams, and I think that the area that he's going to help us answer the most would be the defensive line. Halfback wise, I'm happy with what we have here. James Conner and McFarland are a great duo. They do exactly what I want them to. And Ragus or however you pronounce his name, he's gotten a little bit of playing time, and I've liked what I've seen out of him, so I see no reason to really do much with the halfback spot. Obviously, Trey Lance is primed and ready to take over the quarterback position if Ben does retire. I'm really honestly at this point hoping that Ben Roethlisberger does retire. We've accomplished what we need to accomplish with him, and if he doesn't retire, that could stunt the growth of Lance. And not only could that stunt the growth of Lance, but that could really hurt me financially. But you know, if Ben comes back for another season, we got to respect it, and we're going to do what we can to utilize him if that happens. And then we obviously have King here sitting behind both of them. Hasn't gotten any playing time. Defensively speaking, we've had so many injuries and issues on the defensive line. Right now, Tuitt's injured. Cam Hayward's been injured for long periods of time. Obviously, J.J. Watt has been injured like every freaking game. I mean, it's just absolutely wild. So we traded for Zach Allen just for some more depth along the D-line, somebody that's a little bit more able to stop the run and things like that to help us out. But we are weak across the defensive line, and I think this is a spot where we're really going to be looking to upgrade either through the free agency, through the draft, or through a trade. I think that's where Deontay Johnson could help us out the most. With that being said, our cornerbacks are looking pretty good. We currently have Nelson and Lane on the outside, as well as Hayden starting in the slot. And the rookie Carter has come in a few situations and has made interceptions and things like that. So I'm looking to get him playing time. So he's looking to take over here probably next season as well. You won't see anything new with the safeties. We have Edmonds and Brooks, and then Carter's kind of filling in there at free safety sometimes. We have Fitzpatrick. Ulysses Gilbert and Devin Bush are playing fantastic. I'm going to catch you guys up on the stats in a second because we have a lot of league leaders and stuff like that. TJ Watt's been playing well this season. He has 10 sacks. And then, again, another big injury on our front seven. Bud Dupree is out with an injury. So we're really struggling on the front seven. That's where our biggest issues have been. And like I said, I need to address those issues because that's where all of our injuries are. That's where we're looking in the future with our draft picks and everything like that. Special teams, not much has changed here. We have Rondell Moore returning. We have Elam punting, the punter that we drafted, and then Boswell kicking. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the stats and get an idea of what's going on here this season. So stats-wise, Ben Roethlisberger having an absolutely phenomenal season, 4,300 yards, 51 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. This interception ratio, or rather the number of interceptions, is too high for me. This is my first time in a while throwing double-digit interceptions, but we are surviving. We still have a 5-to-1 interception ratio, and with that being said as well, we have a very good quarterback rating. So, I'm really not worried about it, just something to be aware of, that he did have a little bit of an uptick in his interception numbers. Trey Lance is actually worth talking about because he's had playing time. 491 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Decent numbers. I think that whenever the opportunity arises, he is going to be a successful substitute for us, for Ben, and I think he will be the franchise player, so that's good to see. Rushing-wise, I think James Conner hit 1,000 yards. He's very close to hitting 1,000 yards. He definitely will by the end of the season. Anthony McFarland has added 524 on his own, as well as 6 touchdowns. Nobody else really to speak of in the rushing game. Receiving-wise, Juju Smith-Schuster is sitting at 1,200 yards and 18 touchdowns. Claypool, 1,100 yards and 16 touchdowns. And Deontay Johnson playing that slot role, 718 yards and 6 touchdowns, as well as a lot of yards added by Ebron, a lot by Gentry, and actually 8 touchdowns, which is something I like to see. And then McFarland added 457 receiving yards on top of that, and not much to speak of from anybody else. Blocking-wise, this has been one of our strong suits. We've had a lot of guys play a lot of games and not give up sacks. The rookie right tackle has played in all 14 games and has yet to give up a sack, so that's really important. Okorafor, as I noted, plays in most of the games, hasn't given up many sacks at all. With that being said, defensively speaking, this is where some of the highlights are. So Devin Bush, 131 tackles, which is good enough to lead the league. Sack-wise, we've been down on our sacks this year simply because of how many injuries we've had, but TJ Watt has eclipsed 10. Cam Hayward has gotten 8.5, even though he's been injured. I'm a little disappointed Bud Dupree's out because he was on pace to lead the team in sacks, and then beyond that, not too many. But this is one that I really like to see. Minkah Fitzpatrick has 8 interceptions on the season. Steven Nelson has 4. Devin Bush has 3. Devin Bush's stat line is just absolutely phenomenal. 131 tackles, 4 sacks, 3 interceptions. And not only that, but the defensive touchdowns. He has 3 defensive touchdowns, which is just absolutely crazy. 2 fumble recoveries, 4 forced fumbles. Just an absolute monster here in terms of our defense. And forced fumbles, we also have 4 out of Bud Dupree, so that's good to see. And that's pretty much what we have to note defensively speaking. I think we'll look at some of the kick return stats because Rondell Moore has eclipsed 1,000 kick return yards as well as 243 punt return yards. From a league perspective, I do want to show you guys what's going on here. Ben Roethlisberger is not leading in passing yards, though he is leading in touchdowns. So Teddy Bridgewater up here in passing yards, Kirk Cousins very close in passing yards, but Ben has a substantial lead in touchdowns. Rushing wise, we have Austin Eckler and Nick Chubb at the top of the league in rushing stats, but Nick Chubb is superior in rushing touchdowns. Receiving wise, around the league, DJ Moore leading the league in receiving, and Justin Jefferson coming in second. I will say that Juju and Claypool are up there in the top, top 10, but they're not doing crazy numbers like DJ Moore is. And then defensively speaking, I think that it is worth noting that Devin Bush is leading substantially in the tackle race, and I believe Minka is leading. He was leading healthily in the interception race, but he has now been close to caught by Stephon Gilmore. So a couple things that are worth noting there. As a league, you guys have seen a lot of Panthers here when I've been going through these stats, and that's one of the things that's interesting to look at is that the Panthers are actually tanking this season. One of the better players in this league decided to kind of tank his season, and the Panthers are sitting at 1 win. I think we actually, and I keep clicking on the wrong thing, I think we actually have 2 teams that are sitting at 1 win. So I think that's one of the things that you guys might enjoy to see is who's actually at the bottom, who's going to have the top draft picks, and by golly, I can't select the right thing to save my life. Standings. There we go. So the top draft picks, as they stand right now, the Cardinals sitting at 1-13. A user took them over late, did get a win with them, so they are currently sitting at the number 1 pick. The Panthers are sitting as the number 2 pick, and boy, have the Washington football team kind of fallen from grace. Last year, they had that epic playoff run, and they played us really well whenever we played against them, but they're 3-10 this season, so back to the drawing board, I guess, for the Washington football team. And then, some other bottom feeders. The Texans are down here. The Eagles have fallen off. The Rams have kind of stayed towards the bottom. The Bears, I think they fell off a bit. The Jets are kind of in the middle, and then you have all of these teams like the Broncos, the Dolphins. The Dolphins made the playoffs last year, and they're only 5-8. So some trouble there for some of these teams that have had success in past seasons and are now sitting towards the bottom of the league. So with that being said, I don't know that there's much else left here to cover. Like I said, there are a couple positions that we want to address moving forward that you guys will want to look out for. But we're in a position to make a Super Bowl run. I guess here's the last thing to show you guys the awards. The last thing left to accomplish on Ben Roethlisberger's resume is an MVP award. In real life, I highly doubt that he'll ever win an MVP award, but in the franchise, this is what we're attempting to do with Ben Roethlisberger. We're attempting to finish out his resume, win that MVP award, and then hopefully he retires on a high note. Coach of the Year is currently Mike Vrabel, and then we have a couple other potential award recipients with Ben Roethlisberger, Devin Bush. Minka was also on that list. We don't have any of the Rookie of the Years on here or anything like that. We don't really have any rookies starting. Big Ben, best quarterback. I think, James Conner's 8th on the best running back. Wide receiver, we have both Smith-Schuster and Claypool towards the top. Offensive line, David DeCastro is close there. Pouncey's on the list. Best defensive line, I don't think we have anybody here because our defensive line's been injured all season. Best linebacker is sitting with Devin Bush. Best defensive back is Minka. And then we did have Boswell up here as the best kicker, but he's recently missed a couple kicks for us. So that's where everything stands from the standpoint of our team. Like I said, I'm going to try to put everybody's link in the description so you guys can go check out what's going on with the other teams. I'm going to try to encourage everybody to do a recap of what's going on with their team and their season and things like that. If you guys enjoy seeing this video, make sure you guys leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Comment down below with what you guys would like to see with the team in the future. And I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys have a good night.